We're going to talk about a warrior queen today, a ruler so fierce that her enemies, a global superpower, actually had to come up with a special name for her, pretty much out of pure respect.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is sometime in the 1500s, and the Portuguese, well, they're basically running the world's oceans. They've built this massive maritime empire, and they have an iron grip on the most critical trade routes, especially that incredibly profitable spice trade flowing out of Southeast Asia. They were, without a doubt, the force you did not want to mess with.
But right in the middle of all this, they run smack into an adversary they just can't seem to shake. Someone so formidable, so relentless, that they ended up giving her a title. One born out of respect, and let's be real, probably a healthy dose of fear. So the big question is, who was this incredible woman?
Her name was Ratu Kalinyamat, and her story is just wow. It's a real roller coaster of unimaginable loss, followed by an iron-willed resolve and some seriously brilliant leadership that went toe-to-toe with an empire.
But you know, she was so much more than just a queen who inherited a throne. No way. She was a builder, a nation builder. She literally took the smoking ruins of a collapsing kingdom and forged a naval and economic powerhouse that forced the entire world to sit up and take notice.
To really get who she was as a queen, you first have to understand the absolute tragedy that made her. Her whole journey kicks off with the violent, brutal collapse of her own family's kingdom, the Demak Sultanate.
And when I say collapse, I mean her world fell apart with shocking speed. It was just one thing after another. In 1546, her father, the king, is killed in battle. Her brother, Sunan Prawata, takes the throne, which makes their ambitious cousin, Arya Penangsang, just furious with jealousy. So what does Penangsang do? He has the new king, her brother, assassinated. But he wasn't done. As Ratu Kalinyamat and her husband were returning home, Penangsang's men ambushed them, murdering her husband in cold blood.
Just stop and think about that for a second. In what felt like the blink of an eye, her father, her brother, and her husband were all dead. And the person behind all of it? Her own cousin. This wasn't just politics. This was betrayal of the deepest, most personal kind.
So what happens next is the stuff of legend. She's been stripped of her family, her kingdom, everything. And Ratu Kalinyamat makes a decision that marks her transformation from a grieving princess into an absolutely unstoppable force of nature.
And her response was extraordinary. She retreats from the world, renounces all luxury, and begins this ritual of intense meditation and austerity, vowing not to stop until justice was served. It was this huge public declaration of both her profound grief and her completely unbreakable will.
And get this was her incredible vow. She puts out a bounty, but not for money. She offers everything she has left, her title, her land, her wealth, the whole shebang. The price for justice was her entire future kingdom. Eventually, a nobleman answered the call, defeated Arya Penangsang, and then, in this amazing gesture of respect, gave the kingdom of Jepara right back to her.
With justice finally served, Ratu Kalinyamat didn't just rule, she revolutionized. Taking the throne of Jepara in 1549, she kicked off one of the most remarkable periods of nation building in the region's entire history.
So how'd she do it? Well, for one, she used this brilliant economic policy called the Commenda system. Essentially, she turned the state into something like a venture capital fund. She would invest the crown's money into merchant ships, financing their voyages. When they came back with a profit, the kingdom got its cut. It fueled this absolute explosion in trade and filled Jepara's bank account.
And the results? They were just staggering. Under her leadership, Jepara became the #1 exporter of rice in all of Java. That's a critical food source, sure, but more importantly, it was the foundation of her economic might.
This economic boom then funded a massive naval expansion. With all this new wealth, she invested heavily in her fleet, growing it from about 40 ships to a massive force of 300 vessels. And we're talking huge warships here. Jepara wasn't just a trading port anymore, it was a true maritime superpower.
So what do you do when you've got a powerful navy and a booming economy? Well, if you're Ratu Kalinyamat, you set your sights on the biggest player on the world stage, the Portuguese Empire.
She saw the Portuguese control over the strategic port of Malacca not just as a threat to her own trade, but as an insult to all the local kingdoms in the region. So she did what great leaders do. She built alliances, forging a coalition with other powerful sultanates to challenge the European giant head-on.
In her first major move, she answered a call for help from an ally and sent an expeditionary force of 4,000 soldiers and 40 ships to attack the Portuguese in Malacca. Now, it wasn't a decisive victory, but it sure sent a clear message. A new power had arrived on the scene.
But she was just getting warmed up. A few years later, in 1573, she allied with the Sultanate of Aceh for another, even larger assault on Malacca. This time, she committed a staggering force of 15,000 soldiers and a fleet of 300 ships. She was all in.
And even though these campaigns didn't ultimately kick the Portuguese out, they absolutely cemented her reputation across the globe. Her legacy wasn't written by her allies, but by the very empire she fought so hard against. Her European adversaries gave her a name. It wasn't a slur or an insult, but a title born of pure, hard-earned respect. In their own language, they called her the Kraniga Dame. It's a Dutch phrase that translates to the courageous lady. Her rivals, the dominant maritime power of the age, saw her bravery, her strategic mind, and her absolute refusal to back down, and they honored her with a name that is echoed through history.
The story of Ratu Kalinyamat is such a powerful reminder that history is filled with these incredible figures whose stories have been overlooked or just pushed to the side. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other great leaders are out there, just waiting to be rediscovered?